most of our platforms. Let's see. We'll see
Cool.
the platforms ticking in here. If you're joining us live and watching this, you'll notice that it is not just me and Barry tonight. We have a few esteemed guests with us tonight, and I'm very happy you all are here. And this will be a great discussion. And I feel like I should introduce you, but I don't have names up. So, y'all want to introduce yourselves while I get the names ready? Rose, you can introduce yourself first.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Rose Figueroa, and I am right now in St. Pete, Florida. So I know we're all over the place, and I do. We're talking about virtual reality, extended reality, things like that, right? So I have published some things here and there, and experienced a lot of the headsets, either for research, for work, for fun. And I do a lot of forensic accident investigations. And then, of course, the proactive, what we call work, that is just the companies, consulting from the human factors, kinematics, biomechanics, safety areas.
Cool.
I get to follow that. Impressive.
Yeah, you do.
So, typically my day job, anyway, I'm Brian McDonald. Typically my day job is like 2D screens, but before doing UX, I did industrial design, so all 3D design. And I always try to go to different XR hackathons. I do some of that in my own free time. Usually I am in the Boston area.
Awesome. Well, I'm super stoked to have you two with us today. Obviously Barry and I have thoughts and opinions, but it's always great to get others, a variety of voices in here. Barry and I are just two white cisgendered dudes. Sorry, that's a curse word.
I would really help with that.
And so Brian is meeting our third quota, and Rose, I'm really happy to have you here.
Others like Latina, like no.
How many boxes do you check?
It's like 4 or something. Yeah.
No, I'm thrilled to have a variety of perspectives tonight. I think I guess we kind of buried the lead here, but the story tonight, we're talking about Apple's headset, Apple Vision Pro.
Vision Pro, yes. So we're chatting about the names too.
Yeah, we'll give the full breakdown during the main show, but that is what we're talking about tonight. If you all watching, listening live have thoughts and opinions about the Apple Vision Pro, please let us know. You can chat at any one of the places that we're live now. We'll see that on our end, and if we like what you have to say, we might throw it on the show. Love to know what you all are thinking about it. Yeah.
Oh. It's scary. I'm now intimidated. The fact that we have people in the room who actually know what they're talking about, as opposed to me, who just waffles on with an opinion from this side of the ocean.
So I want to hear what you have to say first, right? Like it's.
Oh, great. So I get to go and say my opinion, then you guys get to turn around and say, actually, you don't know what you're talking about because it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, it's like this. But hey,
Rose can have a rubric.
I've always had to be educated.
You'll see, Barry, I expertly crafted the show notes to make them go first with their opinions, and then our.
So then I can very quickly rewrite mine.
Exactly. Oh yes, no, excellent points made.
I agree with Rose and Brian. There we go. That was a short show, wasn't it?
I agree. Actually, I'm writing that in now.
I've got no opinion. I'm just happy to be here.
I'm also going to write that. I'm going to steal that, Barry.
Anything else I need to do for you while I'm here? Oh.
I actually do need to put in my thoughts here for all the panelists here. And this is actually, I should slow down for a second here and just take a moment to appreciate this, because I was telling everybody before we went live that this is kind of a big moment for me. This is the first time since we started the show in 2016 that we've had a full panel of 4 people on one show. And so that's very exciting to me to see us get to this point. I don't think we'll sustain this week over week, but I am very excited to have us all here tonight. And so I'm just taking a moment to appreciate that. And while I appreciate that, I'm going to write in my notes here because I was just trying to manage the everything else.
And if you look at the science, I mean, the graph's pointing straight up. Soon we're going to have 20 people in here.
20 next week.
What's the maximum number this platform will take? Do we know?
10.
Oh, well, that'll be squished, won't it?
10 would be very squished. I can't even imagine what that would look like visually, but I think just for me, 4 people makes sense for a podcast. I think any more than 4, and you start to get into a territory where opinions get lost, or it's kind of like the number of users, right? Once you hit like the 5, then you've kind of discovered, what is it, 80% of the problems. I feel like with 4 people, you hit 80% of the topic, and it's a good enough mix to get a variety of opinions in there. So
yeah, more than 4, and it's easy to have just some loud person drown out some shy person.
So I think you could do one that it's the full 10, and you give each person a certain amount of time, but then it's like a game, like the next person has to pick up for what the last person was saying. So you're gonna see, like, they have to use the last word and keep going. And
also like the relay.
Happens.
Yes, and yes,
filling the blanks.
We've had I will say, in a non sort of weekly show format, we've had the HFES town halls, which, by the way, one is coming up here soon. Stay tuned for more information on that. I just got word about it today, so stay tuned. The HFES town halls, though, I think we had 6 people on at one time filling the screen. I have to go back and see what the maximum was, but we had maybe 6 or 7 because there were some people behind the scenes. That wasn't too bad, but those were very directed segments towards what they had to say. They were almost presenting serially.
Yeah, I think I was able to join 1 or 2 as an attendee, and you had them like a series, like this person, and the next person comes in. It's interesting.
Let's see. Yeah, so we got some folks watching. If you're watching, listening, I see some chats coming through. Please let us know what you think of the story tonight. Love to hear. Alex says, a game of human factors, yes and, or telephone.
I told you that would be fun.
Oh, I keep coming back to the notes. I got to write some original thoughts here. I had some thoughts and I wanted to say them. Okay, yes, I got them. You guys talk.
So go back to HFES. Are you guys going at all this year?
Yes, I have to some extent. I'm presenting, and
it's a good idea if you're presenting to go. I think that works. Yes,
exactly. And then I'm a part of the board of directors for BCPE. By the way, everybody get certified. So we actually hold our annual meeting at the end of HFPS. So we're basically stuck in a room all together for 2 days. So we either like each other or not, but we're going to be together 2 days, fully doing all the business stuff, the back end stuff. But I get to, now experience that. That is a lot of work to make sure that, the exam is the high level, how all the certificates, all that. So, but yeah, I kind of like at that point, I have to, quote unquote, go. But of course, that's basically for me, and this is similar to you in like your version of it. But that's where I catch up with my peers and colleagues, like at least once a year. We're in the same hotel, stuck all together.
Yeah. I did have somebody asking me before EHF this year whether I was going, and I was like, I think I probably should, given that I'm the president and everything. I think if I don't go, then something's going to get said. But, yes.
You just send a robot, right? Like an iPad for talking about Apple stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true. I so want to do that. I want to just for one meeting or just have some, because I think did we talk about doing that for HFES last year about trying to get the robot with the iPod
Yeah.
so I could wander around.
Walk around. That would have been cool. I'm also going to ASB, which I have not gone in quite some time. I was more active when I was a PhD student. I actually helped them do the diversity task force that then became a committee. And then I kind of like went away, started doing other organizations. So I'm presenting, so I'm going back to ASB, which is the biomechanics conference.
Cool.
Very
What about
cool.
you, Brian? Are you a conference addict or?
Usually before more design things, I'm usually more in like the UX design world. So like I'm actually in San Francisco right now, so I can go to Config for Figma conference, which is the design tool I use pretty much all day when I'm not, in Teams meetings, which is the other half of my day. I work remote, so it's all just like meetings and digital work.
What's that like? Just kidding. I live that too.
Yeah. It's also nice because my partner does the same, so I'm not just like in a house by myself.
Cool.
Although that was good and bad. I now have more space. We have a house, but before we had a 1-bedroom when I just moved to Florida.
Yeah.
And with COVID, we were both consultants in meetings all the time. So it was like, so who's taking the call in bed and who's taking the call in the living room? Because we have to switch it up.
That's kind of how it is with us, but like usually, almost always, she gets priority because she's actually a UX researcher who talks to like clients, and I'm a designer who talks to like internal people or like business to business people. Like they're in a lab, they don't care if it's background noise.
I care if there's background noise.
Yeah.
Well, you're not one of my clients, so
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Cool. It's no, we because both me and my wife work together, then quite often we can be on the same meeting. But even then, trying to get us both in the same room, because in this setup I've got another desk opposite me, which is her desk, but I still have to try and route everything. So we've only got like one set of microphones. So trying to do a Teams meeting, where I have to make sure that all her stuff is muted, so then it can all go through this. It's all a bit much. But yes,
Do you like full on use your podcast setup for Teams meetings?
I do now. Mainly so the main reason for doing that now is because I did have just a smaller microphone set up in front of me that meant I could just move this one out the way and that's fine. And it didn't go through my deck or anything. But then I managed to record 2 podcasts where I thought I was going through all of the fancy gear and all that sort of stuff, but no, it was all recorded through the lousy microphone. And so that upset me and made me sad. And then I'm like, but I paid for this kit and I'm only using it like say once a fortnight when I'm recording this stuff. Why don't I use like the good quality stuff for when we try to communicate on a professional level? And so now I do. And it also often becomes a talking point when you get on new people into meetings.
Yes,
like,
it does.
Like setup, and I'm like, I know it does, doesn't it? Look, it's amazing. Have you not listened to my podcast?
You have the links ready in like a note, so you can just copy and paste it. I'll send it to you in chat.
That's a genius idea. I'm going to do that. Thank you.
Efficiency, engineering background. That's what I have.
But yeah, if I just had one of them thingy backgrounds that you could say, oh, if you want to listen, then just there you go, ding it up straight up.
Oh, there you go. How about that?
Just like one of them.
Oh,
does it fit in? It just fits in, doesn't it?
It barely does. I don't know if. Hang on, I got to try scanning that QR code, and because it messes with everybody's labels, so I can't use it very reliably during.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I am curious on if it actually shows a full QR code there. Oh yeah, it does look like it works.
Yeah, it goes to the website. Nice.
Very cool. Well, you can leave us a voicemail there. I thought there was like a. Oh well, it shows up in the top right left corner there. So I guess there's that. I'm discovering like how everything changes here as I play around with these things. I guess that come up there. Yeah, support the show. Yes, my podcasting gear. Have you heard of it? No, I agree, Barry. I think there's a lot of that same talking points that I get too, because I have all of my podcast gear tucked into a dock, and then to switch between my personal gear and my work gear, all it is just a USB unplug and then plug into the other device. And so it's very nice for like user meetings, and it is a talking point. And you have the best mic in the room, which is always good.
True. Yes.
Bragging rights.
Yeah, there's one developer I work with who uses it, but he hasn't been able to let me know what else he does with it. So he's just like is kind of fronting on everyone.
Well, there is an element there. If I'm in a meeting where I don't know what I'm talking about, at least I can go with all the gear, no idea, which kind of works. And gets. I mean, I'm a consultant. I mean, that's what I do, isn't it? So.
Isn't it the answer? Just it depends. Like
You're absolutely right.
Always.
I used to have like a "it depends" sticker here. Buy an "it depends" sticker, little thing I could throw up there.
I still need to get the "it depends" soundbite thing, so I can have it on a pad, and I haven't done that yet.
I should need that for depositions too, right? Like when I'm testifying, it's just like have to say this again.
Just make that the like text tone, so every time you get a text, everyone hears that. They'll eventually learn.
That's it. That's cool. Yes, that's sort of subliminal learning, just not that subliminal. So,
just training everyone.
Actually, I've been office hunting today because we're looking to relocate my business, and just to slightly different offices. We're getting more people, so I need slightly more room, and we found somewhere that means I might be able to build my own mini studio, which I'm just like.
Ooh,
so at the
nice.
moment, I'm in a cabin at the bottom of my garden, which is fine.
I may be leaving a shout out to another podcast, but not related to human factors, so it's not direct competitors. But I have a friend that she hosts a podcast, and she now has a whole setup, and she did it in her closet.
Yeah,
it's amazing because it's actually small, so you just created a really good ecosystem for it.
amazing.
you don't need a lot of space really to make a certainly if you could do what we're doing, like doing it all remote. If you want to have live people in it, then I guess that's a different ball game. But I don't have that many friends, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, but doing it like this, to get just the right setup is quite cool. Because I mean, as nice it is to have this thing behind me and stuff, for like normal meetings and stuff, I don't want that up there really. I would like a smaller one, but you sort of want to have that more professional look. Whereas I would like to set everything up for podcasting stuff in a different way.
You can always just cover up the podcast, so it just says the human factors on all your backgrounds. Have a little thing you can take on and off. Now it's underlined.
Yeah, I think, but then I would be getting away from having just a massive LED thing in my background.
I mean, it'd still be a LED for 95% of it. Just 5% would be a little blocked off.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no, that's good thinking. That
more shiny in meetings.
I do think that I went slightly over the top when I got it because it is quite huge, and if I got a more moderate size, then it would have been able to fit in much easier with more things. But anyway,
that's okay. We just call that American size.
Oh yeah, no, good show. So I'm always a fan of bigger is better and biggest is best. But,
all right. Well, hey, as we're getting ready for the show here, a couple things. One, I found out the mystery of what happened to the show notes when I will talk about the mystery in just a second. As I talk about the mystery, Rose, there's a couple places down at the bottom of the show notes for you to fill out. Just want to make sure that you saw those for the it came froms and the one more thing if you want to just throw something in there. So the mystery, what happened? Well, I set up some automation recently to make it so that we never miss a thing when it comes to HFC social thoughts. That's right. You can use it. Don't use it. Actually, don't use that hashtag right now because it will totally mess up with the show notes.
I used it earlier.
Oh yeah, I know.
Is
And
that what's happened?
I think that's what's happened. So when that automation kicks in, it appends the show notes with a you know what? I'm going to turn that off right now just in case. So it appends the show notes with whatever was said. And I think what happens when that gets pushed in there is that it clears the formatting. And so when it clears the formatting, it clears all the comments that others have made, which is not great. And it also like deletes all the bullet points and reformats all the bullet points. So I'm going to turn that off right now.
Good idea.
I think that's a great idea. Here I was thinking I was clever saying, oh yes, we're going to make it so it's automated. But
Too clever.
Well, the
Too
fact that
clever
I spent
sometimes.
so much effort tonight, because I normally send out a tweet and a LinkedIn post, and normally I get told off for forgetting to put in the HFC social thoughts hashtag. I was like, tonight I was all over it, and I was like, look at me, I can do it. And even now I do it, and I still make it wrong.
I'm not scolding you. That's my fault. The automation's on me. It's all good. But I think I figured out. I think that's what it is. And if it doesn't happen next week, then it is for sure what is happening.
Cool. And if it's not, then oh well.
All right. We're about 10 minutes to show. You know what we haven't done in a minute, or I guess we did it last week, but we'll just do it again this week. We usually preview the news for next week.
That's true.
That's something that we can talk about really quick here. So tonight, obviously, talking about Apple's Vision Pro and everything that goes along with that. But anyone watching or listening live can go and vote to let us know what they want to hear about for next week. And it's on our Patreon, but anybody can do it. You don't have to be a patron to vote. Let me get you all a little linky scanny thing. QR code. That's what they call those. Oops.
I like your version better.
Linky scanny thing.
It's got panache around it. I can see that's got a real hook.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's the linky scanny thing. And if you go to this linky scanny thing, you can choose the news for next week. And we'll preview those right now. So the stories for next week include researchers want drivers to see clearly on the road. Hostile design. How can urban design impact social inequality? Long missions, frequent travel take a toll on astronauts' brains. The FTC is rewriting the rules of the internet just in time for the AI sea change. Democratization won't save research. And a digital UX perspective on the urban design process. So we have quite the sampling for next week. You can all vote on any of those. Right now, it looks as though we have a three-way tie. Oh, I need to refresh since showing this. Yes, it looks like a three-way tie between researchers want drivers to see clearly on the road, the hostile design with the urban design impacting social inequality, and democratization won't save research. So we have 3 votes in right now. Again, you all can choose what we talk about next week on the show just by going to that linky scanny thing right there. What are you thinking, Barry? What do you want to hear about next week?
Well, so the seeing clearly on the road thing, that's, I guess, interesting, but is that not a goal in life, just to be able to see where you're driving? I don't know. Hostile design, that's got that ticks a lot of boxes for me around how we drive social inequality, and I've got a particular thing around homelessness and things like that as well, which is all over that. Long missions take toll on astronauts' brains. Well, yeah, probably. But then it's space, isn't it? So cool. I'm all down with space stuff. What is the FTC? Remind me.
Rewriting the rules of the internet.
No,
Just in time.
What is the FTC?
Federal Trade Commission.
Hey, Jinx.
Cool, thank you. So I don't know whether that's good or bad, but we talked about rules before. Yeah, a bit boring. Democratization. Haven't we spoke about that before? I'm fairly, or maybe it was a council meeting I was at, but I had a rant about that fairly recently, I thought. So that might be useful. And digital UX perspective on the urban design process. Got 2 urban stories. I think I'd be quite interested in talking about hostile design.
Okay. Well, I just refreshed, and it looks like we got some update vote totals here. We have 3 for hostile design. How can urban design impact social inequality? And then in second place, we got 2 tied. We got the FTC is rewriting the rules of the internet, and democratization won't save user research. So we have a few of you voting right now live. What about you, Rose? What would you like to hear about next week?
I think I vote for the hostile design too. It goes on theme of what I do, right? And one of the things that I will be talking, like when we're talking about the mission for all and socioeconomics and such.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Brian, what about you? What's your favorite story of that list?
Yeah, hostile design is one I yell about in Boston all the time.
There we go. So I guess what you're all saying is if we want to see you guys back next week, it better be hostile design.
Though, I mean, you could definitely kind of pull the two, because like the UX perspective for the urban design process.
I think we might.
I was going to say, I do think they are kind of joined together, aren't they? Because we could make one lead to the other.
Yeah, I think we might mix those up and just do those together. And I think that's what I had in mind, but I just didn't put them together when I put together the poll. So
obviously, I haven't seen the link, but I guess I'm kind of interested why the digital UX perspective, as opposed to just a UX perspective, whether something was being drawn out there. I don't know, but yeah, definitely let's talk hostile. Because that's always good fun.
We'll go vote because here, I'll put up the linky scanny thing one more time. There's a linky scanny thing. I'll leave it up for a couple seconds. Go vote if you want to influence what we talk about next week on the show. Again, it's on our Patreon, but anyone can vote.
I'm trying to scan it, but it's trying to scan Barry's face, which doesn't work.
Worst things to scan, maybe.
Here, what if I did this? What if I just threw it up on the side there? We're going to look a little goofy here. But there we go. I'll put it up on the side. I'm going to get rid of the overlay. I'm going to leave it up for a couple seconds. That way, anyone who wants to scan this can scan this.
Oh, okay. I see what you've done. Yeah.
5, 4.
Yeah, the digital
3,
UX perspective
2,
is interesting on the
1.
urban design, because it's like thinking of all the like flat design, then moving into the
wrong
other.
button.
I wish we got some professionalism behind the controls of this. Just random stuff.
You know, Brian, I'm just now looking at it. That looks kind of like a QR code behind you.
Yeah, it's just the Portuguese painter. But if you scan it, you can also see a picture. So that's cool.
Oh, so it is a QR code. It's a
no,
QR
it's not.
code.
You can get a camera picture if you take a picture.
Okay.
There have been cool QR codes recently that have been like embedding photos inside of them, which is like a cool future thing we can do.
It is quite cool, isn't it? But then I've always got a slight issue with QR codes now, that unless you actually know where they're sending you, I mean, they're just ripe for a bit of a bit of thing. But no, you're right. I've sort of seen some of them embedded picture ones, and they do look really cool.
Are they kind of bad user experience because it could just go anywhere? Yeah, but does it look really pretty? Yeah.
So this kind of goes along with the whole controversy around the domain .zip, because it looks like it looks like an extension, and so you might just be able to get somebody to think they're downloading something, but it goes to a website and it's malicious.
Yeah, I mean, like I can train my parents, hey, zip is good, exe is bad.
And
can't train them zip is sometimes good and sometimes bad. Like what?
All right, Brian, Rose, I'm going to have you guys do something really quick for me. Go to your settings here and go down to audio, and just under advanced options, I want you to check the following things. And let me know when you're both there, because I can't see you all.
There.
Okay. All right. Check off echo cancellation, noise suppression. You want those on.
We're on.
Okay, they are on. I want you to also put high resolution audio and auto gain control, both of those on. And that way we'll make sure we have the best audio possible for this podcast. And then we'll do a quick check, and then we'll go ahead and get into the show. So, Rose, I'm going to have you do just a quick check for me. Can you just give me like a sentence?
This is a sentence, and I just switched my camera, so give me a second.
Sure.
Getting back at
There
it.
you go. There you go. Hey, multicam.
What is this? That's amazing.
Multiple camera views. All right.
Like
and
it.
Brian, let me hear from you just to give me a quick sentence.
Yeah, this is Brian, and I changed one setting, theoretically high resolution.
Perfect. Coming through great. All right, everybody. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with the show. We're going to do this thing.
So is it the time that we go get a beer to be ready for the show?
Bottle of wine.
You got about 30 seconds, so if you want to go grab it now. All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
All right, hello everybody. This is episode 287. We're recording this live on June 29th, 2023. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome, joined today by an esteemed panelist of a panel of guests. We have Barry Kirby.
Hello.
We have Brian McDonald.
Hello, everyone.
And Rose Figueroa.
Hola, hola.
I am so happy to have all of you on. In fact, this marks a big milestone for Human Factors Cast. I'd just like to take a moment and pause and appreciate this. For the first time in our 7-year run, I guess, 6-7 years. This is the first time that we've had a full panel of 4 people on during one of our normal shows. So thank you all for being here. Really excited to talk to you all. Tonight we'll be covering the Apple Vision Pro, and we'll approach it from a Human Factors perspective. We'll also take questions from the community related to workplace struggles. That's fairly ambiguous. Essential UX stats and ethical considerations for UX researchers participating in research. But first, we have some programming notes. I usually ask for this towards the end, but would you kindly give us a review? Tell your friends about us. And if you have the money and you want to support the show, just $1 gets you in the door of Patreon. All that stuff really helps. One more thing that I'll ask about is that we are starting sort of our newsletter. So if you have thoughts and opinions about what topics you'd enjoy in a quarterly newsletter, head over to our Discord. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. We'd love to hear from you. But Barry, you do another podcast. You do 1202. What's going on over there?
Oh, you should have. If only I'd realised you were going to mention it, then I might have had something prepared. No, over in 1202, we are still talking artificial intelligence in hospitals with Kate Preston. Kate Preston, friend of the show, she's been on with us in the past, and with AI, everyone's talking ChatGPT and all that sort of cool stuff. Kate her PhD is looking at how we can use AI in the health domain, specifically hospitals, and how that AI can contribute. However, a lot of the findings that she comes out with during our interview has got nothing to do with AI, really. It's about the way that the organization of the health domain is actually stifling the adoption and development of technological and digital tools. So, yeah, go down and have a listen to that and see what you think.
Good chat. All right. Well, why don't we get right into it? That's right. This is the part of the show all about Human Factors news. Barry, why don't you do the little reading of the blurb thing? Let us know what's up.
I'll do the reading of the little blurb thing. So we're talking about Apple Vision Pro, and here's everything you need to know. Apple has unveiled the Vision Pro, a new augmented reality or AR headset that boasts a host of advanced features and is expected to deliver the seamless experience and elegant design that has come to typify the brand's products. The Vision Pro has 2 displays plus an external panel with 23 million pixels overall. It also includes an IR and a LiDAR, which is light detecting and ranging cameras, and a dozen other sensors. Meanwhile, the operating system for the AR headset, Vision OS, has been touted as the first OS designed from the ground up for spatial computing, and shares core components with macOS and iOS, but with visual processing optimized for the Vision Pro. Users are expected to enjoy driving a range of apps from Adobe's Lightroom to Microsoft Office. However, the drawback is going to be the high price, which starts at, and this is starts at, $3,499. Higher than most anticipated. There's an understatement. The headset is due to become available early next year. So, Brian, are you ready to pay the big bucks for yet another headset?
I do love VR, but for 3,500, I'm probably gonna pass. It's kind of a mixed bag. It's a huge step forward in refinement. It has really good vision, it has really good hand tracking, but it's kind of a step back in actual VR capabilities. There's no haptics, there's no controllers, so you can't really play standard VR games. You don't get any tactile feel. So they're really focused on making a really kind of good, relaxed 2D environment, theoretically in 3D. And I think they kind of nailed that part, but it's kind of too baby step for me. Rose, what are your thoughts?
I was muted. I was following instructions, to be clear, be muted, but anyway, I was gonna say, it's you saying that just reminded me the Jason Bourne movies, right? It's just we're trying to go what would sell, or what people would, maybe, I don't know if they were thinking easing the people to it. May have already been working on something up, the researchers in the back end. But what we have right now, like you said, it just seems like they have every iPhone that it's new on every year, so maybe I would just skip until the next year's run in that sense.
So I think here, I agree with both of you. And I think the big question for me is, will this be sort of the thing that kickstarts mainstream VR, XR, MR, whatever? Will this be the thing? Because Apple's kind of been the trendsetter, love it or hate it. I'm not an Apple person, but I respect that they set a lot of trends. And so I'm wondering if this is going to be the big thing that sets off sort of this public acceptance of VR in our everyday lives. I think the price tag is a little bit prohibitive when it comes to that, but will future iterations drive that cost down? Apple fanboys will buy anything right now, and they are the ones that are going to essentially beta test this in a operational environment. So I don't know. To Brian's point, I think games and haptics might take a step back, but then you also have all those techies that are going to buy this regardless of the price tag. And will it proliferate? I don't know. Barry, what do you think?
Is this just a pricey Oculus Quest, really, or a Quest 2? I mean, for what it is,
Which version though? Which because that's the point, right? They're getting better. So what are you comparing it with?
It's a good. I mean, for me, because it's an XR type capability, so the design is interesting. It's fallen back on that whole ski mask type approach. I could almost see this being worn on an aircraft or in a car, or car by the kids, probably a lot easier than some of the others that we've seen. And because it's got that that pass through capability, then I can see it integrating with that sort of things a lot easier. I think also it sort of sparked a few ideas for me around how you could maybe use something like this with autonomous vehicles. So if you're in your Tesla doing its auto drive thing, you chuck that on, you can be doing whatever you want to do. But then if it integrates properly, then actually when you need to be handed back control, it could possibly do that in a really good way. But I don't think that's got anything to do with this product as such, but it did inspire them sort of ideas around how could that pass through HCI type of work. From an Apple point of view, I'm an Apple phone user, but I'm not an Apple Mac user. So I'm not a laptop user in that respect. I do like the way they do their mobile OS for the general use case. So generally it's very robust. Generally, it's well user tested, and so things don't break very often. That would give me a fair amount of confidence in what they've done. But fundamentally, this feels like Google Glass to me. They've chucked a product out there. What is it? What is the use case? What is it for? They kind of done so. What Google Glass did was sort of throw the product out there and say, right, what are you going to use it for? How are you going to make this cool and sexy? And then it went away because everybody went, well, I could use it for this, but yeah, I also could not. And I kind of feel that this might be there as well. That unless somebody actually grips it and says, this is what we're going to use for. This is the specific springboard use case that we're going to go with, and that's cool. And I just wanted to bring in something that I just found on socials just as we were going through this, that a friend of mine, Bob Stone, sort of commented on, and we've complained about the price already, right? So $3,500 is a lot of money. There's already a new version out there of the Apple Vision Pro CVR edition by Caviar, $40,000. But for that $40,000, you do get 18 karat gold all over it, and a headband made from the legendary, I'd never heard of them before, but the legendary Conley Leather, who was a supplier to the British Royal Court and Rolls Royce. So actually, maybe in that £40,000 viewpoint, then $3,500 is as much.
So that's the one you're going to buy, right, Barry?
Well, I'm going to have two, clearly, because I'm going to have one for everyday use and one for show. So,
yeah, I mean, Barry's getting the big podcast bucks, so he's got the 40,000. Look, so I want to bring up a couple points here, Barry, that I think that you talked about here. You mentioned Apple OS, and I think you also mentioned that you like how Apple does their mobile OS, and I think there's an important thing here for me is that they are developing an entirely different operating system for the headset, which leads me to believe that they're going to put a little bit more faith into it than they would, than Google did with Google Glass. This is Apple Glass. Come on. And so, Apple's got the sway. I think there are a couple points that I want to highlight here is just about sort of what does make this different than other headsets out there that are existing today. You mentioned, is this just another Oculus Quest? Well, is it? I mean, technologically, is it? Maybe. But I think the big thing here, what is different about it, is it has the Apple name. I don't know. Rose, you've used a lot of headsets. What are your thoughts on this? I'm really curious on how this breaks down comparative to other headsets.
Well, to be clear, I have not used this one, right? So, and that's one of the things that I was chatting with you. Is like, I'm excited to get my hands dirty. I wouldn't pay for it, but if my employer wants to pay for it for me to bring it in the comparison, I would not complain right now. But it is what I've done. A lot of the research, keep in mind that I would be seeing how it can be, all the headsets applied to forensics. How we can use, leverage this technology, XR, MR, whatever, right, to bring in the jury to the site. Let's put it that way. So think about it in that sense. So what I've been doing is a lot of understanding each headset and the capabilities and limitations of the technology, because they can all be used. It's just depending on what type of case, which ones would you deploy? Like cameras. If I'm just going to document something, I could use my phone. Actually, like we were talking earlier, like the 14 Pro, that is the one I have, it has LiDAR too. I can scan on my phone that, with the 13, I couldn't. So it's understanding the limitations and capabilities that I could potentially use. Like an example for this one, if you just want to have an easily available for the jury, that you can just have the 2D images that, for example, if I'm calibrated them, let's talk about a real case, right? Like nighttime conspicuity, where I calibrated the photos and like calibrated them in my Mac. So I know that the resolutions are, transferable. I can make sure that what they're seeing there is what I'm seeing on my screen. I can put them in this headset, and now everybody's looking at the calibrated photos as I did, and I can attest that that's what I saw when I went and documented, yada, yada, yada. So there are uses. It's just to see, again, like to what extent it could be a comparison to the Oculus, right? Like if it's worth the price, the difference, etc. And I think it may Barry brought a good point. If we have that it integrates well with the phone, the Mac, right? Like right now, I have to bring my big PC, connect, like very handy, to connect the headsets. But if now you're telling me like, oh no, you just need your phone and you're good to go. You're showing the photos. That's like it could be really good. So it would all depend on seeing how like the add-ons, how it's integrating with their systems. Apple has done a good job, right? The Apple TV and all these things that you go at your house. So if they integrate these part of the like the bigger ecosystem, I mean I might buy in at some point and would be my go-to.
I mean, that's a really good point, isn't it? Because it's still early. It's early adopter technology here, so we're not. It isn't mainstream. It's still expensive. It's still that early buy-in piece. Some of the technology, I think, is just the usability or the wearability of some of it. So they have learned from some of the other headsets out there. So they've got the fans in place to keep it cool. They thought about the balance and the battery pack. I believe isn't actually helmet mounted. That's actually elsewhere. So that could be a pro or con depending on how the balance of the headset works. So, and they've got the down, so it can see your hands, and therefore you can got an element of using them as controllers. So they have learned from other platforms out there, but it's still. Yeah, it's still going to be a niche product until it isn't. Because one criticism I've got of Apple stuff is that you can buy stuff early doors, but at some point the updates of the OS will just brick the early technology. And if you splashed out the big bucks on this, particularly if you've that £40,000 gold version, and it bricks it at some point, you're going to be pretty upset. But I'm guessing it's more focused at early adopters, technology developers who can then crack on with that. I mean, Brian, what are your thoughts on this and how you would use it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because it is pretty similar to the Oculus Quest in a lot of ways, but it's also kind of fundamentally different in that the way it has the screen resolution allows you to actually use it as like a second screen, whereas I tried to do that on my Quest and it was awful. There's no way you can get that done. It's way too blurry. But I've heard the Apple headset, you might actually be able to. It might have that good enough resolution where you can use it as kind of a productivity device. Of course, it also doesn't have controllers. So you want to play your cool VR games, get a different headset, save $3,000. So like I think it's really different use cases. I've actually been traveling a lot recently, and if this came out a year ago, I probably would buy it assuming it integrates well with my MacBook and I can use it as external screens, as opposed to me carrying an extra screen in my luggage all the time, which is what I currently do. Like that'd be a huge win.
There's a couple elements here I'm picking up on. I think that is Apple's intent. And I want your thoughts on this, everybody. So I think one of the big things that I'm sensing from Apple here is that this is a social VR device, XR, MR. This is a social extended reality device that's kind of their focus here. If you think about it, there's a couple key features here that they are highlighting in their presentation materials that make me think this. So the first thing, obviously, is this what is it called? The through sight, where basically, yeah. So you can see other people. So if you are outside of this device, looking at somebody wearing this device, you are able to see their eyes through this screen. And so I think that is one social piece of it, because then you can tell whether or not they are looking at you. A lot of human communication is eye contact. I'm looking at each one of you in the eyes as I'm talking to you, although I'm not looking right at the camera. I'm looking at you on my screen, so it doesn't quite map as well. But if I'm looking here at the camera, this is more effective in communicating than it would be if I were to look at my screen with my notes and everything that I want to say. But the other things here that are important, and I will look at my notes here for this, are that they are sort of making this other claim that there's a 3D avatar of you that you are then going to be able to project into other apps like Teams, WebEx, Zoom, all these other things, where your avatar is then sort of it uses the eye scanning technology to look at where you're looking, and it will then project that onto your avatar, and so it looks as if you are not wearing a headset when you actually are. And I think, to your point, Brian, about this being a productivity device, I think that is one of the biggest barriers, is that if you are wearing a headset as a productivity device, you can't necessarily see that person, what they're looking at, and have that eye contact communication that is so important. And so I think these are some of the key aspects that I'm picking up on, that they're actually gearing this as a social VR, MR, XR device that will allow you to still interact with other people around you. Because the last thing that I'll say about this is that there's sort of this other aspect of it, that when you are using VR mode, in that your eyes are completely occluded by the screen, when somebody comes within view, you'll be able to see them inside. So you'll know that when others are present and nearby, yes, they'll interfere with whatever VR thing that you're looking at in that moment. And there have been plenty of jokes about them. I'm not going to relay them here. But when somebody comes in that view, you'll be able to see there's somebody else around you, and thus not excluding you from social interaction. I think all these elements together really paint a clear picture to me that Apple is looking to make this a more social device. What are your thoughts? Everyone. I'm going to throw it to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. If you look at what they released, we've been talking about VR and AR, and they have been talking about AR and their Vision Pro. They haven't mentioned the word VR at all, which I think is very intentional. They want to make this a augmented reality device, even though it really is VR with really good pass-through. Does that count? I don't know. But I do think they really are trying to make it social. So I do wonder if those 3D personas pass the uncanny valley. Are they still not quite there? It'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. That when you were mentioning the see-through as well, and picking up on Brian's, right? Like, if now, imagine that. I mean, have you ever played with a VR in a room, right? Like, whatever that person is playing, you kind of feel that you're isolated from that person. You stay away. I mean, you don't want them to hit you if they're playing something with swords, for example. That's another story. But it feels like it's the person and the rest. And with this type of technology now, at least, like that you're being able to see them, it's exactly, you're exactly right. I think they're going on that route, that it's adding the social aspects. Like, you're still now, even if one person only is using them, I think, of course, they're hoping that everybody's using them. Then you can still talk, and it's like a conversation piece, which then that would bring in we're already distracted when we're in a room with other people on our phones. Imagine now that you literally have it on your face, and you can just be like, sure, I'm listening to you, and you have something else. So that may bring other components that in the social aspect that we have not explored, though.
I mean, that is because I sort of went the other way with it, that I wasn't entirely I've never been convinced that that wearing a headset, no matter what happens to it, can make you socially interact with people in the same room. The biggest issue I've sort of had so far is when because when you put the headset on, it's there to immerse you in something. And the biggest thing I don't like is you put this on, and then somebody sneaks in the room behind you and pokes you in the back or something like that, and you then lose complete trust with what's going on because you can't see. Now, that's where I think this will help to a certain extent, because when somebody becomes near, then you'll know that they're going to come and try and play a prank on you. Fine. But when you then try and engage with them people, no matter what sort of pass-through you've got, it's always going to be artificial. So I do think but I do think they are growing the fact that two people wearing them or a community of people wearing them will make that interaction better, because that's kind of with the Oculus stuff at the moment, and not ubiquitously, but it is still a very almost lonely experience in doing it. You are generally driving it on your own, or you're using that capability. There's games and things out there to do more collaborative stuff. Unless I'm working with, I guess, people and reasons why I cannot actually interact with them, like have a face-to-face meeting with them, I've never found them truly a good second place to do that sort of stuff. I'm really interested in the things like you were saying, Rose, in terms of being able to replicate an environment, being able to make sure that they can see what you can see, about enhancing what you're seeing. I mean, I've seen it used for design. I've seen it used for all that sort of stuff. That's brilliant. I love it. I would have it tomorrow. But I think for me, we keep on trying to make it what it's not. We're trying to get it so it's almost, is it Emperor's New Clothes? So we're trying to pretend that it's not there. We can make you see through it. You can see their eyes. You can see this. He's like, yes, but you still got a massive hunk of plastic, metal, and electronics stuck to the front of your face. That's not eye-to-eye contact. So is there ever going to be a future where either everybody's wearing it, so a bit like what's the film, Ready Player One, everybody's wearing it, therefore that's absolutely fine. Everybody's used to it. It's just day-to-day stuff. Or is it always going to be the plaything of the rich? I don't know. What do you folks think?
I want to jump in here and mention briefly, I think it's fairly obvious, but I want to mention briefly that we actually don't have access to this device.
I said it already. I was like, hey, I have to play with it.
And comments, yeah.
We are making comments based on reporting. And I do want to bring another side to this reporting. You go and look at some of the testimonials of folks who have used this, and I see an overwhelmingly positive response to the device. Just to read off a couple headlines here. I used Apple Visions Pro, and it's absolutely mind-blowingly impressive. I wore the Apple Vision Pro. It's the best headset demo ever. First impressions, yes, the Apple Vision Pro works, and yes, it's comfortable. So, I mean, look, Apple can pay for these to be sponsored and higher in the search results, but it's also Google that I'm searching, and so they...
But for what use?
But right, exactly. So there's another here article, people lost for words reacting to Apple Vision Pro. But again, you also have other things like the use case, Rose. I was actually getting right to that. The Apple Vision Pro, great, but who's going to buy it? I think...
So we were talking earlier, right? Like the potential topics in for next week, the socioeconomic status, right? Like Barry was saying, like, is this a thing that is going to come and everybody's going to use it? Well, not all of these people can. There's two things on headsets, right? A lot of people talk about price, which is what we're talking about here, but also is the space needed, right? Like there's a lot of headsets that you need a big space with nothing, obstacles and whatnot. And not everybody has a bigger house. Not everybody can afford to have that space for whenever I want to use a headset for school. Because it will become the thing that everybody has. It will become another tool for school that not everybody may be able to afford. So it's like, it brings other aspects to it too. Like, would they be willing to at some point, optimize the redesign so they're reducing the price? Are they waiving or giving people the access, based on how much you can pay? Like, how would we get there that everybody can actually have it? Like Barry says, so it's like second nature, and we don't care that you have that big thing. I mean, but we're outside, we wear shades. A lot of times, like, you're not seeing the eyes of people. We get used to it. It's just, what are we gonna do? One, to get used to it, but two, that it is accessible for everybody, so that when, how Barry was commenting, that it's not just for the people that will have the money for it.
Yeah, I mean, half the people here are wearing glasses anyway. I do think it'll be a lot like cell phones in that it is always going to be a bit of disparity, but they're also a lot more ubiquitous now than, when I was growing up. And they're a lot better for what you get. You don't need to spend as much to get a much better one. So I do think like eventually it will come down. We're just really early stages.
Yeah, and I think that's true. But I think, to go back to your comments, Nick, about the reviews, when I first put on, what was the first one? The PlayStation headset on. I'm a massive fan of Beat Saber. I think it's one of the best games ever. Just because, so I used to be a massive fan of Nintendo Wii. Just like that, Nick, yeah. When I first played that on the PlayStation headset, and it's got wires everywhere, blah, 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 and I thought it was the best thing ever. I was wowed. Fantastic. We then move forward. I've got the Oculus Quest 2, and I put that on. I was wowed. It was brilliant. Best thing ever. because the technology has moved on. That's fantastic, and I appreciate the technology, and I've got no doubt that if I put this headset on, which I would have done if Apple had sent us one to review prior to the recording of this, I absolutely would have done, but they refused, or just didn't respond. But no, I think if I put it on, it's impressive. We'll put it on, we will be wowed. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. But
But to what use? To what use?
So like I said, my Oculus Quest, we bought one. I wanted to use it for some work stuff, and I like playing on it. There was like all sorts of things I was using for to get fit and all that sort of stuff. It's now sat in a bag at the end of my desk, probably now for the best part of 7 months, because I've had no complete. I mean, the other thing that you need to do, and Rose, you're absolutely spot on with, is you have to have the space to use it. We struggle. A lot of people struggle to have like a home office at the moment. Because of the pandemic, everybody had to create their workspace at home, etc., etc. Does this mean now that new houses almost need to be built with that cavern that we need to use for VR? Because when I was using it, say in the bedroom space, I mean, my bedroom floor isn't the tidiest of things. You're sort of falling over all sorts of things as you're playing, and so yeah, are we going to have to create these sort of spaces, which is not just the economic inequity of having to buy the device, but actually to have the space to use it efficiently and safely as well?
Two thoughts here. I want to jump in. Barry, I am glad you brought that point up, because that's what I was going to end that discussion with is, yes, we'd all be wowed if we put this thing on. And that's the reactions that a lot of people were giving. And I will say there is a trend for those accounts or those influencers, those reviewers, the closer they are to sort of VR, MR, headset exclusive content, the more critical, the more grounded that those reactions start to become. And so you'll see that there's probably a lot more kind of sticking points to traditional headsets that you might have with the Vision Pro. Yes, it's a great device. Yes, it can do a lot of these things very well. But again, like you said, Barry, your Quest is where in a bag? Mine is under my desk, and it has been for months. And I'm a VR enthusiast. And so, yes, there's still that use case that needs to be solved. Now, to the second point that I'll make is with respect to the inequality and sort of the space required to use one of these, I think it depends on the use case. This could, if you were to use it for office productivity, as Brian and I were talking about earlier, this could actually be a great thing, because now instead of one screen, you send somebody a Mac and a headset, and now they have infinite screens that they can work with in a smaller confined space. I have 3 monitors in front of me, actually 4 if you count another PC here. So I have 4 monitors in front of me, and I use each of those for different things throughout my day. But if I had a headset on and I could mount my clock over here, so that way I'm always looking at my clock and calendar right there. It's off to the side. I mount my email up above, front and center, right there. It's always there, never going to move. I use, the primary space in front of me as a workspace. I use this for meetings, and I use this for other secondary information that I need up. And then, oh, by the way, I have a tab open on another thing, but I don't want to I want it up for reference, like maybe a table with conversion charts or something along those lines. I can just set that right up there, something that I'm not using all the time, but is nice to have. And then, oh, by the way, my clock calendar over here, maybe as an alarm comes up, it can come right in front of me and say, oh, you have a meeting. And those types of things in an office productivity type of environment, I see is a really useful use case. And so, yes, inequality, we may not be able to afford this, but if tech companies can provide it for their employees and give them a workspace that is specifically molded to their environments in which they are working, you might actually see an increase in productivity across workers. That, you don't necessarily need a full office space. You could actually mount these digital screens like 3 feet in front of you. And so, you could almost do an area capture of your home. And so, you don't have cats and children and your significant other running around in the background. but you're sitting there and you see everything. And when they get close enough, you see them. But so I'm saying, like, there's a lot here that you could work with in that type of use case scenario for traditional VR for games. I don't think this is it. So I just wanted to make that point. Where were we going?
I do
that?
have
Sorry.
a point from
Yeah, go
what
ahead,
you said. It may be because I'm actually currently working on a course for product safety and ergonomics. And as I see him just doing that, I'm just here like, well, I'm hoping that we know we are talking about it and we have not even touched it. I'm hoping if the researchers from Apple are looking out there is that is a foreseeable use, right? Like, so I hope that they're trying to assess that now the ergonomics aspects of it. Are they gonna tell you like, yo, you're putting that too high? If you're gonna planning on be looking at that 20 times a day, that's not a good idea, because the average user is not gonna know that. Yes, if I'm looking at like that high, my clock is there 20 times a day. I'm that's gonna bring issues that it will be from the product now. They cannot just say like, oh, but that was a person pointing it there. Well, you could have said like, no, that's not a good idea. There, I've seen you, like looking at that X many times. There may be a lot of stats in the back end, right? Like they could do that. So throwing it out there, ergonomics will be a thing depending on the use, and I'm not sure to what extent they would be looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just take that a step further as well, because I mean, we know that being sat at a desk and staring at screens for a whole bunch of time is not great, and we push whatever, either the 20-20-20 rule or the staring off into space, whatever's the most appropriate to whatever you're doing. If you're constantly wearing this device, how are we going to encourage people to go and take that quick break, to go and walk away from the desk if it's plastered to your face? Because that means, and it sounds whimsical, but actually taking that off and then becoming unimmersed, then coming back to it, putting it back on again, getting it all set up, becoming immersed again. That's not trivial compared to sitting at your desk with a couple of screens in front of you. So there's two risks here. One is that it isn't as effective because of the donning and doffing of the device. But secondly, could it actually be a health and safety risk? So where you're not getting the eye rest that you need, the brain rest, and things like that, because it's constantly plastered to your face. I mean, Brian, do you see any risks with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that very clearly is unfortunately yes, because I've watched videos of people who were in a VR headset for 24 hours and they ended up seeing the world through essentially a window screen for a little bit because their eyes got used to that. And I don't think anyone's truly solved the divergence accommodation conflict where you're kind of always looking at 6 feet away, even though when you're not. And so your eyes can get tired, and totally fine for a small bit of time, but 8 hours a day, I think it's kind of good that battery life is currently only 2 hours right now.
But you can plug it into the wall. So,
oh yeah, that's true. Cool. What could go wrong?
So now you're tethered as well. Brilliant.
The heat, sometimes when your computer is connected, it gets hotter, it's I was commenting also to your point on the 6 feet away and whatnot. I was joking. I think I actually started seeing memes about that too, where my parents, at least the Latinos, I don't know about you guys, but it's don't sit right next to the TV. You cannot be in front of the TV. You cannot be in front. Look, get away. And now we have the screens right on our faces, and that is where we're going.
I'd love to sit here and chat about this all day. So let's just do one more sort of round on final thoughts on the Vision Pro. We'll start with you, Brian.
Sure. It's pretty cool that Apple's kind of now into the spatial computing game. I think it's a really interesting first step, and it will drag some people in, which is nice.
Rose, final thoughts on the Apple Vision Pro.
I think it has potential, especially how they have been proven to be good in integrating their devices. So I'm looking forward on that. I mean, it looks cool.
Barry, final thoughts?
Similar. I think it will. I think if anybody can make this mainstream, then Apple is the company to do it. They've got the background to do it. They know how to do this stuff to make us not make us desire things that we didn't actually realize that we truly needed, and make them, not only functional but desirable, a fashion statement. So I think they are the people to make this happen. I think there is going to be price issues, but then it's early days, fine with that. But it'll be interesting to see when we come back to this in maybe 12, 18 months' time with the cheaper version, and seeing what that does, and just seeing how much the technology is bounded on in a short period of time.
For me, I really hope this is the thing that makes mainstream VR. Mainstream VR. I think the social aspect of it is very interesting to me, and I'm very curious to see how the public adopts this thing, especially if it is geared as a social mixed reality, extended reality device. And I'm kind of hopeful. I know we brought up a lot of questions and a lot of sort of critical points about this, and it's easy to do that with headsets, but I really do hope that Apple is the one that brings it over that line and makes it accessible. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and just thank you to our friends over at, thank you to our patrons and everybody for selecting our topic this week. And thank you to our friends over at TechCrunch for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to our original articles on our weekly roundups in our blog. You can also join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories. And if you really aren't watching us on the live feeds, you should, because we have a pre and post show where we extend this discussion. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access and VIP patrons, Michelle Tripp and Neil Gainey. We truly appreciate all the support you give, and if you have just $1 gets you in the door for some really cool stuff. We usually do these things, so I'm just going to do it. Hey there, fellow Human Factors, human-computer interaction, and UX professionals. Are you tired of boring websites with no personality? Well, if I got a treat for you, humanfactorscast.media is a website that's all sorts of fun stuff over there. I'm talking detailed show notes, news roundups, conference recaps, and even ways to submit your own stories. And let's not forget the embedded YouTube videos. So you can see how handsome I am if you're a regular audio listener. But really, Mr. Barry Kirby is the one that you want to look at, and our esteemed panelists. Though I don't know why it wrote me in there. I'm sorry. Plus, it's searchable. So if you are anything like me and can't remember what you talked about last week, you're in luck. Check out humanfactorscast.media. And don't forget to use there's a merch store too. Trust me, you won't regret it. And if you do, well, that's on you, buddy. All right, that was a terrible read. So why don't we go ahead and get into, the next part of the show.
it came from.
Ah, yes. Let's switch gears, get to It Came From. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. If you find any of these answers useful or found the discussion fruitful, wherever you're watching or listening, give us a like to help other people find this content. All right, we got 3 up tonight, everybody. This first one here, struggling to see the point of my job. This is by user UX Anonymous on the UX Research subreddit. They write, how can I better understand my role as a researcher in product design? And what should I do if I'm unsure about my job responsibilities and the decision-making process? Rose, I'm going to start this off with you. What do you think this person should do?
I don't know what I did there, but my mute button disappeared. I'm back. So this is interesting. I actually have workshops that I've given because of like the mentoring and all this shebang. But what I would just say, one of the big things that help it's leveraging the network, right? Like you are having or looking for networks of people that either look like you or that there's a lot. Like I gave an example, one example is like I'm a Latina, there's the tequeria, and there's like this lack of over like 40,000 Latinos in tech. And there is actually a channel literally of people that can post these questions right there anonymously, and everybody comments and help them. You create network. You can have people that have been through that, and even the same community, the same domain, or different domains that you can extrapolate from. So it's just the network can be important. Getting different perspectives. Sometimes you think that you don't know, like what are my job responsibilities? Like you can also create your own goals, but for that you need to understand what is your job overall, right? Like a UX, you're usually actually helping other teams. So learn what they're doing and how can you help them and make the case of what can that become now part of your job responsibilities as well. So there's, that's the communication piece, leveraging the network, managers, peers, etc., people from all levels, and that can help build your goals and going on that route.
Brian, thoughts?
That's all day about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Rose. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Just thinking about networks, UXPA is like everywhere. UXPA Boston, I've been to 1 million of their events, and it's really nice just to be able to kind of talk to those peers. I think kind of the thing here is, to me, your job is like to be the expert. Like they might think, oh, NPS is data, it's a number, and like, okay, but like, is that truly the best metric? You probably know what the best metric is much better than they do. So you can kind of have those conversations, guide that way. Every team is different, but like ask your coworkers what they need, and particularly what do they care about, and then you can figure out ways to help that way. Every team is a little different, but you know the most about research. So how do you get to the best decision possible? How do you get them closer? Barry, what are your thoughts?
I think you two are very nice people, and I'm going to be slightly more brutal in that if you're in a job as a researcher and you don't understand what it is, how are you even in the right job? There is an element of you've got to do you. There's a certain amount of almost personal responsibility here to make sure that you are doing what the sort of stuff that you want to be doing. And if you don't know your job responsibilities when you took the job, either way, I mean, it's easy to get into a job and not understand necessarily the full extent of what you've got to be doing. That's, because every job is individual whilst we understand the core. But this really feels like you're all at sea and you don't actually know what you're supposed to be doing. And I kind of wonder just how you got there, how you are you doing what it is that you think you should be doing. So I think you need to be slightly more introspective to a certain extent and find out what makes you tick. And if the job that you're doing, despite what you think it is or what you think the responsibilities are, etc., if it's not doing it for you, are you in the right place to begin with? Nick, am I too brutal, or are you with me?
You all are very nice people. No, I'm right with you, Barry. Like like my comments here. Who let you in the door? And I think the answer to this is just, how do you better understand your role as a researcher? Research it. Research your role. Like that to me, it is one of those things where it's like maybe this isn't cut out. Maybe you aren't cut out for this. I'd hope that whoever hired you understood your level of expertise and would hire you for the appropriate level. This seems like a junior question to me where somebody just doesn't know how to push back against PMs and doesn't know how to sort of establish clear boundaries within the roles that they are trying to. And look, it's never a cakewalk. It's always hard. It's always hard to establish boundaries, but those are fights that you need to have internally, and it's all out of respect for whatever the product is that you're building. So I think when you have sort of this conflict, where somebody else might be stepping on your toes, talk to them about it. And if you can't have a discussion with them about it, talk to your supervisor or your manager and have them help you walk through that mediation. It doesn't need to be an awkward conversation, just to need to say, hey, this is, traditionally the role that a researcher would take in this type of environment. And so I don't know, have the conversations. It's tough, but have them.
I got one last thought, Nick. I do think this is a very common thing for people early in their career, because there's a lot of things where like, oh, textbook says I should be doing this, but I get here and no one listens to me. But that's like, again, like part of your job is communicating what you do to other people. And that is just super essential in how you get to the next steps.
Right. Well said. All right, let's get into this next one here. This next one is from UX Stats You Can't Live Without, from user Rhapsody and Green on the user experience subreddit. They write, what are your favorite UX related stats and why do you find them relevant? Rose, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm gonna steal one of yours, but I promise I was thinking about that one, which is the expectancy. The pre and post and things like that. And it may be because I didn't read that question, so I'm stealing your answer. Now, I have not looked lately, given from the UX perspective, given that I'm more in the physical ergo and human factors. So I am much interested in seeing what you guys have to say. And that's my dog.
Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm a designer who always has to do our own research because we don't have any UX researchers at my company. Yay, it's me. So for me, one of the classic that we always talk about in grad school was 5 users find 85% of your problems. Just having a few users is immensely helpful. And I mean, technically it's with 5 users, you'll observe 85% of usability issues have probability of occurring 30%. So essentially it's just your severe ones. You're not going to find all of them, but you'll find all the showstoppers. And that's always really helpful. Just 5 and you can do a lot. Barry.
Mine, I guess I'm not strictly UX, so mine is slightly broader than that. I'm quite a fan of the 80-20 rule. So you basically get 80% of the functionality done, and that will get you mostly there. The last 20% will take you forever, so just ditch it. It's not that important. Doesn't always work in safety critical systems, but hey, we'll just gloss over that. What I always like pulling out just from that is the whole 7 plus and minus 2. When you're developing interfaces and the amount of memory you can do. I remember that was one of the earliest things I was taught in my degree, and it's the thing that's always stuck with me. And I've always tried to break it because it can't be that simple. And look, I've done this in lesson, etc., etc. But it's one of these things that is not really bolstered in fact, but actually holds true quite a lot. So I quite like it. Nick, what about you? What's your UX stats that you just live with and have pinned up on your monitor?
Oh, this is really interesting because I think half of us interpreted this as what stats do you run versus what stats about UX are interesting. So I just found that an interesting little observation there. For me, I interpreted this as what stats do I run? And one of the most helpful things for me is, as Rose was alluding to, the task expectancy pre-task and post-task, because then you can plot a quadrant of sort of where their expectations were versus where the difficulty actually lied. And that quadrant is really, really important for triaging some of the issues. So if you're like running them through a usability test and you have them, sort of, they expect it to be really difficult and it actually was really difficult, well, then you need to solve that. And if they expected it to be super easy and it actually was really difficult, then that is something that you really need to address. But the things that they expected to be super difficult, but were actually super easy, that's marketing material, baby. Let's go. And so that is a super awesome graph because it applies to many different things that they're doing, and you can almost apply it in any scenario. So that's my 2 cents. All right, let's move on to this last one here. This is participating in research when you are a UX researcher. Is ethical? This is by user IcyNerve4760 on the UX research subreddit. They write, as a UX researcher, is it ethical to participate in UX research studies? Should I avoid participating altogether? Rose, what are your thoughts on this one? I thought this was an interesting one.
I mean, the short answer is you can. It's just do it correctly. Either is it because it's a pilot, and of course, how many times we just ask our friends first to get a sense, an idea, and our friends may be from our same domain that are UX. So I just saw that more as, again, remember I come from a lot of the forensics, accident investigation attorneys, right? Like avoid any conflict of interest though, or if you know too much of it. So we are all UX, but UX, human factors, ergonomics is pretty broad. You could be in this domain and you don't know anything about, like some people are doing on specific, doing like those streams. So you can participate in that research. You're not going to be biased. It's just about making sure you're avoiding conflict. And if there's any for some reason, but you think it's not going to sway your opinions, at least disclose it. And then when you disclose it, everybody agrees, it's fine.
Brian?
Yeah, I think even more expansive, like you do have to be upfront about it. But kind of let the other researcher decide what is and isn't appropriate. Personally, when I'm running tests, I'd love to get a cheap UX professional looking at my work. But I want to know about it so I can then triage their comments because they're not my typical users. So they're going to have some really important points, but not the typical ones. So just let them make the call. Barry, what's your thoughts?
So similar, I guess, in many respects. So as long as it's not your study, then yeah, go for it. You've got to be honest, though, and I found myself guilty of this in some time, that you try and read into the questionnaire design or the interaction design. So you're almost trying to get, rather than just providing an honest result, and off the gut result. And so can you almost overthink your response to it? Then there was a slight flip side I thought about. If you came across some of this and somebody was doing, that you got stopped in the street or something to take part in this, and you were part of a team developing a counter product or a competitor product, there's an opportunity for sabotage. There's an opportunity for you to actually skew their results. And we've all very nice people, and you guys are all very, very nice, and that's great. But if I come across this, would I be able to stop the temptation of having the opportunity to make my product look better? I don't know. I'd like to think I would. I'd be a very nice person about it, but you never know. Nick, what about you? Do you think we're the best and nice people all the time?
No, we're not the best and nice people every time. But I believe that outside of any other circumstances, like you've mentioned, either we're working on the product ourselves, or we're working on a similar product, or we're doing it for a competitor, I think we are the best person to do this. And the reason is we know how to provide feedback in a way that will help the end UX researcher at the other end, or the human factors person at the other end of this, because we know what Think Aloud protocol is. We know sort of the methodology that they're doing, and yes, there is sort of this intrinsic need to I don't know, like deconstruct what what things they're doing behind the scenes. But at the same time, like if you just take a lot of the questions at face value and you're just like, okay, you want to know the answer to this, here's the answer to this, and I'll tell you the answer to it, but I'll also give you reasons behind it, and I'll give you sort of everything that you're looking for with it. So I think that's from my perspective, we're the best people to do it if we provided everything else is sort of taken into account.
And that's exactly why I'm letting you in my sessions all the time. I'm just also putting a little tag, not typical.
Right. There you go.
You know the right verbiage, right? Like you know the words that they're looking for that would actually move forward. So it's important as well. Yeah.
Right. You can speak product in a lot of cases too, which can speak volumes to actual product when you're trying to translate what users are saying to product. So that's also really helpful. All right, let's just get into this last part of the show. One more thing. It's just where we talk about one more thing. Brian, what's your one more thing this week?
Yeah, so keeping in on the spatial computing theme, recently, just for like random design fun, I've been using this web tool Bezel. It's not the most powerful, but it's pretty good for rough prototyping. You can make kind of loose interactions you can look at through a quest. It's way easier than Blender and Unity, though way less powerful. So that's my thing. Rose.
Just random because I see all the social media and whatnot, so I just wanted to leave one more thing comment. Given that I'm always social media, if you see me on LinkedIn, but I have not gotten into TikTok or Twitter, which is kind of weird. Given that I'm always trying to see and testing how people would react, how you could leverage those tools and reach and whatnot. So I wanted to share that, which is kind of weird.
Fair enough. For me this week, so last Friday, I was lucky enough to host the CIHF annual awards. And it was all remote, and it was kind of a weird, surreal experience to a certain extent. So we had fantastic finalists, we had amazing winners, and all that sort of stuff. But I was sat here in my tuxedo, and I had my glass of champagne, my glass of prosecco, and all that sort of stuff. And it was such a weird dynamic to go from drinking a glass of champagne and congratulating the winners to then going back in the house. I mean, I was lucky because my family did sort of say, well, you only need to put the jacket, shirt, and bow tie on. You could just be in your pants. It'd be fine. Nobody'd ever know. And I was like, no, I think there's got to be a bit of decorum here. So I made sure I had my proper trousers on as well, but I was wearing Crocs. And it was also really, really hot. And so just the whole sensation, the whole thing was something I think having a remote award ceremony can be quite good because, more people can attend and do all that sort of stuff remotely. But there is something quite nice about having a stage there, having everybody in the room, having an atmosphere. And I don't know, my jury's out at the moment. It'll be interesting to see when we discuss it as part of the team afterwards. We did the remote rewards because of COVID and all that sort of stuff. Whether we do it remote again next year, jury's still out. But it was a good chance to drink a bottle of Prosecco when nobody could actually steal it from me. Nick, what about you? What's your one more thing?
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that I was overwhelmed by a new game that came out, Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda, and I finally got over that hump, whatever it is, that was just so intimidating to me, and now I'm hooked. So if you want to talk about Zelda, let me know. I'm happy to do it. But that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode, enjoy some of the discussion about virtual reality, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 246, one of our most popular episodes, Let's Kiss in VR. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, so stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. And again, let us know what you want to hear about in those newsletters. Join us on Discord. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things that you can do. 1, leave us a 5-star review. That is free for you to do, and you can do that right now. 2, tell your friends about us. That is how we grow. And 3, if you have the financial means to, just $1 gets you in the door at Patreon. We're always dropping some fun stuff over there for you. The whole library, the Human Factors Minute, the full audio version, exclusive ad-free versions of the show. So there's all that, and just $1 gets you in the door. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank my panelists for being here. Thank you for making this a 4-person show. This is awesome. Rose, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about your work or Apple headsets?
LinkedIn. I think it's whenever I have a chance, I respond back. I promise. If you send me a PM, but we can connect. And Instagram. But Instagram is more like my leisure travel personal side. But it's fun because I've been at this. I think I was in Turkey 3 weeks ago. I've been to like 45 countries, so you can see and ask for advice if you want to go somewhere.
Awesome. Hey, Brian, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to figure out where they can sign up to be a test participant in one of your studies?
Most of the things will be on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I am pretty much Brian C. McDonald everywhere because I have a very generic name.
And Mr. Barry Kirby, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to figure out where you're getting all that money to afford that Apple headset that's made of 18 karat gold?
Well, once you work out that all my the money that Nick pays me for coming on this podcast that then pays for all of my gadgets, then we can go and talk about how you can also get a slice of that pie if you find me on Twitter and other social media at Baz_K. Or if you want to come and listen to interesting interviews with people around the Human Factors domain, then find me at 1202 The Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Stick around for the post show if you're watching live. Until next time.
It depends.
It depends. Bring in the music. Great show, everyone. That was awesome.
Woo! Woo!
I would have been more prepared for this, but no.
Tell me about it. I didn't read half of the pages. I thought
Oh, thanks for that, Barry. Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
that was fun.
Anyone
right?
can talk about stuff after they've read it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you guys read the article?
I do it occasionally. Not very often, if I'm honest.
So you know what I didn't see was a Cookie Monster, and I actually have a Cookie Monster hat. I could have worn that.
Next time.
Missed that.
Oh,
Sorry. I'm just now realizing there was a comment here. How do you spell the bezel tool? I will put that in chat for everybody.
Yeah,
bezel.it.
BEZEL. Yep.
There it is. All right. So I posted that in chat for all of you. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm sorry I missed that chat, and well, now
It's like you're doing a lot or something.
It's like I'm hosting, producing, directing the show. Weird. Board
You're
operating.
doing a good job. Especially like you just said, it was 4 people, so which is weird. You don't know how the things are gonna change the UI, so it's good.
It's a really this is behind the scenes stuff, but it is a very interesting show with 4 people because when it's just Barry and myself, we have the time as the other person is talking to think about our answers and reflect on it. But when you have more time to think and reflect, your answers are more thought through. They're more coherent. I don't know. It's awesome. Well, okay, well.
But no, I really enjoyed it. It's getting different people's viewpoints, and then yes, there is a certain element of I want to dive in and answer that, but you kind of got to make sure that we segue it properly so we're not talking over each other, which is always a challenge on these things, especially as Nick won't stop talking. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good fun.
The other part that's really interesting about it too is, and this is something that I picked up on in the One More Thing, but I also know this is true across other episodes. Barry and I think very similarly, and so a lot of times it's like, yeah, Barry, I agree with you on that. And then it's like, during the One More Thing when Barry was like, oh, you guys are really nice. I was like, oh yes, dissenting viewpoints. Let's go.
It was, I almost felt slightly guilty when you guys are going, oh yeah, no, you should really look around the thing and think about the young people as well. And yeah, oh yeah, I'm just that person.
What are you doing here? Just go back to school. No, no, and that's the point. That's mainly the young people or when you're thrown in a thing that is new and nobody knows in the company, don't even know who are you reporting to. They're just like, I don't know. They want us to do that new thing.
Yeah, it's huge doubly in UX because a lot of people that are new, and there's a lot of companies who are like, oh, I heard this is the buzzword. Let's hire one. And then no one has any idea what they're doing. That's kind of the way my company is right now. We're a $10 billion, 20,000 person company, We now, after 3 years, have 15 designers. Like, that's 3 years ago there was 1. 4 years ago there was 0. So not the most mature place.
Yeah, like every company is going to be at a different place in terms of UX maturity, and it's interesting from our perspective because I think there's sort of the traditional, how do you get, like even in human factors, there's the traditional, how do you get the client or the person, the stakeholders to implement the changes that you are recommending. And on top of that, you'll, depending on the maturity of the company, you'll also have some issues with like explaining what your role is and like how the process is supposed to go. And it's just, it can be really frustrating. And sometimes, like, I don't know, my answer comes from a place of frustration because I've been there. I've been in those shoes where you just keep having the same fight. And it's like, okay, I know that it's easier to say, just talk to somebody and do it than it is to actually talk to somebody and do it. But those are like, you know, as a junior, I wouldn't have had those conversations. I wouldn't have known how to have those conversations. And that's why I brought up the comments about like, I wonder what level this person is at, because to me, that is a like almost a higher order of like, okay, no, this is our lane. Stay out of it. Like, and
for sure, yeah, that's where I like 100% read it as a junior. Because if you're like a senior, then like your job is to figure this out. That's why they pay you money. But if you're a junior, like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's hard. I'd spent 6 months teaching my product owner what design was, and like, hey, maybe if you give me more time, you'll get a better result. And now he's like, oh, if I give you more time, you get a better result. I'm like, yeah, perfect.
Oh, you mean giving things a week before they're actually put into code is not going to be great? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I actually do research. I don't just make it pretty.
So really, the summary of the conversation is I'm just really brutal. I think.
No, Barry, I'm no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you and I share a similar viewpoint, and it was highlighted in that question.
So.
I think Barry is more like everybody. He's the manager that, the hiring manager that is just like, so I'm needing like 10 years of experience, but we just came from a PhD. So he's like, what? How do you know what you're doing? It's like, I could, no, I'm joking. But no, I think it's interesting, right? Like I was reading like I went to the taqueria to see because there's people commenting on that. And they were just saying like, when you get placed at your manager is complete, not even human factors, not even ergo, right? Like that they have no clue, and you became in their management system, and they don't know how to manage you, but they don't even know what to tell you. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard sometimes.
And that is especially, yes, if you are junior going into that situation, that is difficult because you don't know where them boundaries are. And I guess that is where... So I've had a similar experience about a year ago where I joined a team. Now, thankfully, I've been around and I've got an ego the size of whatever. So I'm quite happy to turn around and say, actually, I see this as an opportunity because I can just railroad human factors through and make human factors the topic that everybody knows that they need to do. However, I know that if they could easily get somebody quite junior into that just to be railroaded through. Exactly, Nick. That's what I'm saying. And the it's almost that failure of management, isn't it? Or it's the abuse of management, or the potential abuse for that, which I think is quite interesting. But all of our journey, I mean, for me, this is all about all of our journeys. I got a chance to reflect on that this week. I launched a meeting, and so I launched a project with the client, and about 11 years ago, I did one of these for the first time ever. And I remember going in and I was leading it and I was terrified. I thought the client was going to eat me. I thought the room was going to eat me. I thought I was going to get the contract taken away and, all this sort of stuff, all them imposter syndrome, all of the above. And yet I went into this meeting. I still had half of them feelings, but I was so able to manage them a lot better because I knew I could fall back on my experience, that I had more confidence in what I was doing, and I knew that I was doing the best that could be done. Whereas 11 years ago, I was sitting there going, am I doing the right thing? Or is somebody else just going to go and say, well, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? And so, again, I think experience has a massive amount of play in this.
It doesn't hurt that you're the president of the Chartered Institute of Human Factors and Ergonomics, right? Like, it does not hurt.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, I do have a question though, because like from Rose, Brian, and my perspective, we're all talking from like an American centric sort of viewpoint, and like Anne on YouTube here is saying that they had to create a UX team in an industrial French group, and this was difficult, particularly with the question that we were just talking about there, with sort of setting boundaries. Like, is that something? Is UX maturity, here in the States is a little bit, I guess, more mature, but still has a long way to go. What does it look like in Europe?
So, from a UK perspective, and I think that, and we'll probably be having a similar experience. And that we've talked about this on the show before, that really we're not as mature, and that's mainly down to numbers. There is not as many practitioners within the UK as there is within the US, and I would say within Europe and within the US. That's because you're a much bigger country. But fundamentally, we still don't. If we talk about UX people, if we talk about a human factors practitioner, or UX practitioner, we don't tend to have UX researchers, UX designers. You tend to have Bob, and Bob does everything, and Mary is in another company, and she does everything as well. We tend to have generally more generalists. So, in fact, I was having a discussion today about human factors integration or human systems integration, and again, that's something that doesn't get really talked about as much, and you just expect, you've done human factors, you can definitely do human factors integration, go on. It's like, well, nobody actually truly teaches it. It's an experience project management-y thing. So then if you get put in the position of, right, everything, go and make all this happen, it's difficult. There's not the expertise or the separate expertise, but also there's just not the numbers. We just don't, and I think I reflected on this in the launch of a couple of things I've done recently, and worldwide we are losing numbers hand over fist of people, registered people anyway. So we have a international problem that we're not truly addressing.
They're all moving into UX.
Yeah. Latin America, same situation, but even broader. Not only like UX, but like human factors, ergonomics, UX. When they think about that, they go straight to the very tiny scope of like physical ergonomics, but more literally like the task and whatnot. And they miss this whole big, HFE UX spectrum. I think it's gonna get there. It's very slow. There's things brewing actually, like even like we're trying to develop now. We're very close to launch like a human factors and ergonomic society similar to what you have, but for the Caribbean, all the countries in the Caribbean. But still, it's interesting. Like I told you, even me in the conversations in the room that all the people are building it to launch it, I can see that they're already aligning to just like the physical aspect of it and missing the UX, missing the cognitive human factors and all these things that are big components of the field.
Yeah, I think something's also just for like company size. Like you really only have mature UX teams at larger companies. So at the very least, it's much easier in those larger companies. If it's a small one, you probably only have generalists. You can only afford Bob. You can't afford the whole team.
Yeah, and on YouTube, I was the sole human factors expert, and I had to hire 15 UX and human factors experts, practitioners, but this took 10 years. Yeah, that's that's a big task.
That's a big team.
Yeah.
So 15 practitioners is a good team. It's
it's the team we have for a $10 billion company. So like,
I mean, in the UK, I think there are only. I think I could only point to 2 teams that are bigger than 15. I think. In fact, no. One of them is a massive project, and the other one is a government one. So there's not that many large teams out there. They're certainly not in the UK. So I think that's quite. I mean, and that's really impressive.
The company is joined. Now we're like 50 or so human factors, but they're separated between the forensics and the proactive and UX. So it's pretty cool to see that. Wait, what? There could be a place that there's a lot of these people, and this is not our core. Like, this is a company that does all the engineering and construction and other stuff. So it can get there. There's a lot of us there.
And it's one of these things, I think, that you don't appreciate it till it's gone. So earlier on in my career, before I set up my own company, I was part of a decent size human factors team then. And it was just so cool to be able to, I don't know something about the use of holographic vision, for example. I'll walk down to the corridor and talk to Mark, who's the expert. And I want to know something about cognitive work. Right, I'm going to go and talk, walk down and talk to somebody else about it. And do all that sort of stuff. But then when you go on your own, or you enter a project and you are the sole human factors practitioner, and suddenly, in fact, I had this issue this week where somebody's come along and asking me a really random question way outside of my area of expertise, but you're the human guy, aren't you? You must know this. And so they expected the answer within sort of 2-3 minutes of a return email. It took me a good 5-6 minutes to go and look at the standard, look at the thing they were trying to do to try and get in the context of what they, yes, it is part of the job. You know where to go and look, but it's just that whole, you go from, I've just gone and asked Bill down the road or whatever, but no, it's that whole having a whole team around you. It's just such a lovely thing to have.
You're making me miss working in a building with a bunch of human factors people. I used to have a color guy. Like scientific color, like under different lighting conditions. I used to have a methods guy. I used to have like a cybersecurity guy. Like it was just like you'd walk down the hall and everybody would have their specialties. You could just like, and tell me about that. And you just learn so much from these people. And I kind of miss that. But yeah, like being on your own now is kind of hard.
I was gonna add also the quality control component too, right? Like sometimes it can be nerve-wracking, like Barry was saying. I'm the only person and I'm Googling it or I'm searching it. I know where to look, but what if I'm missing something? What if a new paper came out, right? Sometimes you're always like scared as a researcher too, just like, I want to keep looking. And having more people, even that quality control that you can just go and sniff, like doing the sniff test. Hey, this is what I did. This is what I'm thinking. Anything I'm missing? What do you think? I like that too.
But just reading Ant's comments on YouTube, we work with in very similar domains, shall we say, and we probably know quite a few of the same people. I think the thing I found recently, because I'm growing my team here in the UK, and I've always gone down the route of historically trying to bring new people in, and it's only recently that I've sort of turned around and said, well, actually, to bring new people in and train them up is good. But it does take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. And this is the first time with the workload that I've got at the moment, I've just been like, I need an expert. I need somebody to bring in. I need somebody who knows what they're doing, who I can just say, just wind them up and let them go and make their own waves. And
it's
so
just because of the sub.
Maybe. He's just like,
yeah, I should really stop hiring all this input. Let's work on the team.
I agree with you. The plug and play is nice too, right? Like the lateral diagonal move, where it's you need that you want to keep pushing the people, the youngsters forward and train them and stewardship, right? But then it takes a lot of effort, and I lightly do it, but it takes effort that sometimes people don't realize how much. And the plug and play, it's nice once in a while.
It's I've now got. Well, I will have, I think, next week 2 people in my team actually doing their human factors masters. So, which is quite cool because I get as they're going through it and they're coming and asking me questions and stuff. I'm like, oh, so what are you teaching now? Let's just have a look over your shoulder. Oh, that's interesting. And then I think I've probably told this story before, but when my wife was doing her first module, and so just general awareness of human factors, we had the joys of doing a NASA TLX exercise together. That's what we do for fun and closeness now. we
So
compare
romantic.
we compare methods of measuring situational awareness. I mean, how romantic can one get?
What? Oh, do you measure each other's situational awareness of how that current environment is going as you're talking about
Well,
situation?
You give each other ratings.
Yeah.
I believe this is a family-friendly show, so I wouldn't like to go into.
Okay. Well, hey, to change the subject entirely, hey, let's check in on the poll for next week's episode. So if you want to, you can help choose the news for next week. This poll is on our Patreon site, but it's available to anybody. So any one of you can scan this, what I say, scanny clicky thing. It's a QR code. You can scan this QR code, go to this. This will lead you right to the poll. And we're looking at stories for next week. So just to remind everybody here, the stories for next week are researchers want drivers to see clearly on the road, hostile design, how urban design impacts social inequality, long missions, frequent travel take a toll on astronauts' brains, the FTC is rewriting the rules of the internet just in time for the AI sea change, democratization won't save research, and a digital UX perspective on the urban design process. And I think if those win, we might combine the hostile design and digital UX perspective for urban design. That might be a whole situation, but let's just check in on the current vote totals. Now let me refresh one more time just to make sure. So current vote totals, we have in first place, hostile design. How can urban design impact social inequality? In second place, we have two tied for second place here. It's the FTC is rewriting the rules of the internet just in time for the AI sea change. You guys can't get enough of that AI stuff, I'm telling you. And democratization won't save democratization won't save research. So those ones are tied for second. Everything else is either in third or below. And like I said, you scan this clicky scanny thing or go to our Patreon. You can do either one. Patreon.com/HumanFactorsCast. It's right across the right-hand side of the screen there over by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Can you do both and double dip?
You could do both and double dip. You could do that.
Patreon exclusive.
So yeah, go vote. I think we all laid out our preferences earlier. I'm going to get rid of this clicky scanny thingy so that way we can see Rose and Brian's faces once more. 5, 4, just in case you want to scan it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it's gone. Okay, there we go. Welcome back. You're never gone. It's just an overlay.
It's that whole thing being able to hide behind the clicky scanny thing, having a drink out of the glass of wine.
Oh, I know.
So,
can't do that up here.
That's a genius idea. Can I go on the bottom row, please? Sorry.
All right, hang on. I'm gonna switch you out really quick. All right, go ahead, Barry.
I'm turning to Brian. Woo!
I just need to get lower like this. Oh man.
Well, hey, I've had a ton of fun talking with you all tonight. We're about to wrap up here in about 3 minutes, so I'm just gonna open up the floor. Does anybody have anything that they want to say to an audience of human factors practitioners? Anyone want to plug anything?
But I can plug the BCPE and I can earn brownie points with the other directors. Like, get
Go for it.
certified if you can. The board, or it's a nonprofit. The board of certification for UX, human factors, and ergonomics. Now that I'm in the other side, I can attest this. I knew it was rigorous because I had to study for the exam and whatnot after my PhD, and I was still nervous that I was not gonna pass. But it goes a lot of work, and it's it can help you get the next level when you're looking for applicants and applying for a job.
So if I was going to look at that, where would I go online?
It's bigcpe.org. Thank you, Brian, and they're gonna be very happy I did this.
I'm going to have a look at that now.
Awesome. All right, anybody else?
Connect with us. You're going to a conference. Access where we're going, right? Let's meet up in person.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll be there. We'll be at Human Factors and Ergonomics Society later this year. What is it? October. Still working on the plans for what's going down. And
What's the location of the October one?
October is going to be in DC.
Nice.
which is why I'm quite interested, because I would love to go. I want to go to see like the White House, and I want to be a proper tourist. The only place I've been to America are really St. Louis and
Just
Chicago.
go to all the Smithsonian museums.
Yes.
They're all free and amazing.
It's so all suggestions welcome about when I'm there, about what I need to go and see. So I just need to get past the stumbling block of making sure I'm there.
You and I should go to museums while we're there. You and I should do like a on the floor human factors reports from some of the museums. Oh, let's make it happen.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. And we'll see you then. Thank you to our panelists for being with us today. And we'll see you then. Bye.
Fantastic.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember,